They just basically decided a very simple rule. Okay, let's divide the room with a, let's say, horizontal line. You guys from Transsolar, you work over, and you guys from Pistoletto, you're going down there. That is like, okay, for kids. And of course, I mean, this will clash at some point.
Terms and conditions. The Transsolar podcast for the Biennale 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗃 2025. Episode 6. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the next episode of the Transsolar podcast Terms and Conditions. As usual, we take the installation at the Architecture Biennale 2025 in Venice as a starting point to explore the deeper themes behind it. The installation was developed by an interdisciplinary team of artists and engineers, architects and scientists. They brought a fascinating scenario of our future into light, which received an enormous response. Today, we focus on the artists and on the collaboration in this multidisciplinary project. What can we learn from this for the transformation process in times of climate change? My guests today are Michele Cerruti, coordinator of the Academy of Arts in the Michelangelo Pistoletto Foundation, Jochen Lam, CEO and partner of Transsolar and climate engineer, and Alina Wagner and Melis Özalp from the Transsolar team. So, welcome all of you.
Hi, Martin.
Hey, Martin.
Hello.
Michele, please introduce yourself in a few words. You're in charge of the project in Michelangelo Pistoletto's team. What is your position there?
I'm an architect myself, and I'm actually teaching urbanism at the Politecnico School of Torino. But together with this, I'm working for a Pistoletto Foundation since 8 years now, where I'm coordinating the Academy of Arts. And I was in charge of the project, which means, in this case, since we always work as a collective, this basically means, let's say, coordinating and putting together things in a way that they are effective.
And just tell me, Michelangelo Pistoletto is very famous for his art. He is nominated for Nobel Prize. And what is his concept of art? Please explain us a little bit that we understand his ideas.
Yeah, well, Michelangelo is a super famous, let's say, contemporary artist, Italian contemporary artist. And you're right, it has been just nominated for the Nobel Prize for Peace, which also makes, some issues of why an artist is nominated for a Peace Nobel Prize. But he always says it's probably not possible that we win, but the fact that I've been nominated is already, let's say, a prize, because it's a recognition not only of himself, but of art as a tool, so for making peace. And this is all the story. I mean, his art is all about connection. At some point of his career, at the very beginning of the 60s, he discovered that art could be an incredible dispositive or tool for connecting people through the mirror paintings and then many other works. And finally, he came out with this idea of the third paradise, which is a symbol more than an artwork. And this third paradise basically put one natural paradise from one side, the artificial paradise from the other side, seeing that this is not in balance and seeing that we need the power of creation to make a third paradise. So all the art of Pistoletto is basically finding a way of using the capability of every human as an artist himself, herself, themselves, for changing the world. So basically, at the very core is empowering people in using their ability to change through art, the world.
So this is the point also for Venice, the social transformation here in regard to the climate change. And there are elements that were designed by Transsolar and the Technical University of Munich. And what is the part from you, Michele, from your artist team?
Basically, we had to work on 2-3 elements. One element is the height of water, because in 100 years, let's say in 75 years, the water level in Venice in that specific place will be more or less at 70, 80 centimeters average. So we had to flood completely the room. And this is the first thing you see. So together with the AC, you have water everywhere around you. But then in front of you, we decided to use this concept of the third paradise and use the concept of the mirror as a tool for understanding that you are the protagonist of this planet and there is not another planet. So there is a huge mirror that is mirroring you as a visitor, passing through the water and entering the door towards the second room. And the mirror is also, let's say, mirroring the shape of the third paradise as a sort of a gate, in a way that somehow the point is that, yes, this is the reality. This is what is actually going to be, if nothing changes, because science says that. Together with this, we also think that we, as humanity, we can pass through the third paradise by using our capability of creation to understand to which extent it's possible to limit, to change, or to transform our capability of inventing the present and the future.
No, and I was really surprised when I learned that both teams initially worked independent on their designs, because I think it's a fantastic result. And both of you started from different directions. And I know that you, Melis, played a crucial part in that. Please tell us about your role in the project.
Yeah, so I could summarize it as a funny coincidence that opened some doors for everybody in the team. So basically, when Alina and I got involved in the project was sort of passed through the concept stage, and we were more there to sort of understand how to bring this concept to life. And this is both covering climate engineering and, of course, space design. And that is also when we also learned, like you, Martin, that there is a little to no exchange between the two teams, being Transsolar and the Pistoletto team. And then we were already starting to think about, okay, how are we going to make sure that we use the vision from both sides and implement it in a way that they can coexist in the same room. And that is also around the time when I started getting involved in the mail chain of this whole project. And then when I spotted Michele's name in the CC in one of the emails that I was forwarded to. Now, this is where things get a bit funny, because until now, I didn't know Michele was involved in this team. And Michele was actually my professor when I was studying in Turin. I was studying architecture. And then I did not only have the chance to learn from him, but also had the chance to support him as a teaching assistant in his design studio. So I had a clear understanding of what his vision is in means of art, in means of architecture, and vice versa. So we thought, okay, this could be a nice point where we could start building trust in each other's visions and also find ways, as I mentioned, to make these two different perspectives coexist together.
Mm-hmm. You have to form and come to the same vision. So I would like to know first from Michele, when you start these social projects, this is the, I think, crucial point, how to build up the trust and how to form a vision which works for both sides. So what are your experiences?
Well, this is a very interesting question, to be honest, and the answer is very difficult because, of course, every place, every locality, every group of people is completely diverse and different. No? So it's not always the same rule, it's not always the same approach. But like one of the things that, okay, we are humans before roles. So if we are humans, then, I mean, we immediately, let's say, place the conversation on another level, on both the one of competencies and the one of humanity. At the same time, let's say the part of organization is fundamental because it cuts off a lot of extra issues that can, let's say, come over. No, and then let's say the third one could be being humble and sitting around the table, let's say.
I think that's perfect. I think the first and important thing is just to listen and to have respect to the others. Yeah? And Alina, what do you think? You have also a lot of experience now. You are architect on the one side, you're working in a company of engineers. What are your experiences for this very first phase?
So I would say, of course, a personal connection is very important, or is very, I would say, like a foundation to any kind of project where a teamwork should work, that you kind of understand each other in a personal way as well. But of course, also a professional connection, that you maybe have worked with each other before. So then you know how the other person is approaching some topics or is thinking about certain ideas. And then you also trust that this all comes together in the end. And trust that it's going to be a good project.
Jochen, I think these two visions are going to the same goal, but they are really distinct. So how was the reaction at the beginning when you saw these ideas, when you saw the concepts of the artist teams?
I'm not gonna lie. I think everyone answered so far very diplomatic, but to be honest, It was a mess at the beginning. You know, when we had our kickoff meeting and we basically presented our different visions of what we want to do in the room, it was very different, and also in my head, it was very difficult to get them together. And I was very concerned after the first couple of meetings how we're going to bring it together, because also the time was short and we didn't found common ground at the beginning. You know, like we had our idea with the hanging ACs, and then suddenly the Pistoletto team comes with the idea, okay, we have a path there. We have a path there, and it's going to be the infinity symbol, which was completely different to what we basically had in mind at that point. And you know, at the beginning it was like super hard to bring it together, but I think as you guys just said, we build up trust quite quickly, and we start to understand what basically the idea is of Pistoletto. And we start basically listening to each other, and that was, I believe, the key how the two installations come together.
And what are the conclusions that you draw out of that? Let's say in a broader context, not only for the installation in Venice, but also for your everyday work.
I mean, it's always like that. Like there, you know, in typical Transsolar projects, you have different disciplines with different perspectives on the project. And of course, you need to bring it together. And I think this is one of the key tasks of Transsolar, because we are kind of, I would say, hybrids. We are engineers, but we also understand the architectural ideas, and we have a lot of experience already in the building industry and with cooperations with architects. So we understand basically both sides, and we try to bring it together, because what we experience in everyday work or in everyday projects is that architects and engineers are speaking very different languages, and to translate it and to bring it together, I think this is one of the key things in our job.
No, I think communication is key. And as I said earlier, Alina, you're architect, you too, eh? Melis too. And so we have both sides in the company. That's very important. And Michele, how did you comment on that, what Jochen said?
Well, it really was, I mean, same feeling. After the first meeting, I was, you know, chatting with one of the collaborators of Carlo Ratti and saying, Marco, is not going to work. That is exactly what Jochen you were just saying right now. No, so, and I mean, it was sorry to say that, but it was a little bit absurd, because at the end, like, because of the hundreds and hundreds of projects, Carlo Ratti could not really, I mean, keep on following us, you know, on a daily basis. So they just basically decided a very simple rule. Okay, let's divide the room with a, let's say, horizontal line. You guys from Transsolar, you work over, and you guys from Pistoletto, you're going down there. That is like, okay, for kids. And of course, I mean, this will clash at some point, no? And it was not possible at all to meet in person. So to really, this is what I really miss. I mean, I guess the only thing that we didn't do, and I will miss it forever, will be sitting around the table on the very first day with one white paper, you know, on the table to everyone throwing there. This is something I miss, but life is like this, so you can never, you know, follow the dreams. So, I mean, the big change was this, originally the trust between the two teams was only based on reputation. We do respect and love the work that Transsolar has been doing for years. No, it's an incredible studio. And of course, from the other side, I hope Transsolar is respecting Michelangelo Pistoletto and his foundation. No, but this, I mean, the trust was only based on that. So at the end, those engineers and those artists, no. So what was missing was that those artists and those engineers and architects are all of them people. So in that specific moment, then when we met and we said, not like, okay, this is my idea, this is your idea, but what are your problems? And we started sharing the problems we both have. No, so this was the beginning of the conversation, I guess. And this is what I learned, especially. So the fact that when you work through a project at some point, start from your problems, because if you have a problem, probably also someone else has a problem. So if you start sharing those instead of idea and then probably you build up a common ground.
I appreciate your openness. It's really great.
By the way, may I add to that? I mean, Michele just said, like the practical solution was we're just dividing the room like vertically. So the lower part, Pistoletto was working on, and we had basically the ceiling. But, you know, as it is in these kind of projects, there were, of course, interfaces. And, you know, somewhere Michele came around the corner in the meeting, you know what, we have a mirror wall, and it's basically goes just below the ceiling, and then we have this arch light as well, which is above the 70 centimeters. But you know, I think the key was even that we started to understand the concept and basically trying to make it work together. And the same thing for us, for example, we just before we basically finished our installation, we were thinking of we are cooling. Of course, we also create condensation. What are we going to do with the condensation? We have to put it somewhere. And also there, like we're just then discussing with Michele's team, how are we going to solve that? Because just by ourselves, like we couldn't solve it. We had to get the condensation somewhere. So this is where basically the two installations come together. And of course, there are other interfaces or additional interfaces as well.
And if I might add shortly on top of that, I think what we saw maybe could be constraints in the beginning. These two different visions in the end, I believe, made the exhibition even more powerful, just sending an even stronger message that, yes, the ideas between these two teams that are completely different from each other with a good communication can coexist together in the same room. And I found also quite interesting when Michele mentioned this separation of 70 centimeters, because if you're the observer, yes, when you're working on it, you can account for this. But if you're the observer, when you enter the space, you can't tell that unless you read about it. It all appears as one. So it has to speak sort of like a common language, although they are two separate installations on paper. Mm-hmm. And then in the end, I think what was important is that we all agreed that we kind of achieved that look. And that was a really nice outcome of the exhibition.
No, absolutely. And as I said earlier, I was fascinated that two teams worked on this with different concept. But at the moment you walk into the room, you get the feeling it's really one thing. So, and these two aspects that we talked about, is it dystopian or is it optimistic? Is it realistic or so? This is really at the heart, and I think that's a compliment from my side. I think you made really a great job with these two teams.
You know, Martin, I mean, there is a space that, all this story can be read in, let's say, 4 square meters. That is exactly the passage between the first and the second room, because everything happens there. There is, let's say, a service room that was at the beginning supposed to be 56 centimeters, but then it became 71, but then it became 1 meter. Because of what? Because of technicalities, because, you know, of the size of the standard, the scaffolding, no? And in this space, there are the pumps for the water, for the recycling the water. Let's say the tank that is collecting the condensation water, and then the water that is passing back through the, let's say, the pumps for the pools. There is the scaffolding that is keeping this incredibly huge sort of a mirror surface that is a layer, a very thin layer. I mean, 6 meter high and 2.5 meters wide. No, so huge. Plus there is the light that is on it, plus there are the machines, so the heaters and the AC, and plus there are the pipes passing through. You know, so all this is not visible, or part of it is visible, part of it not, but this was really at some point very problematic, and we had to understand how can we do in a way that the mirror is not, I mean, fire, explode, whatever, and everything will fall down and so on.
So there's what you said earlier, that you have to look at the problems of the other side, yeah, and then try to find a solution together on the practical way, yeah. Jochen.
No, I mean, I think one key moment was the piping that basically penetrates the arch. And Michele, to be very honest, we were very concerned internally, like, what are Pistoletto going to saying about? Because for us it was important that everything is visual. that all the, like, maybe the ugliness of the technical equipment is visible. And of course, we are crossing, like, let's say the arch, which has a very clear geometry. And for us, I think we had internal discussions, because you cannot imagine, like, how are we going to tell Pistoletto that we are going to have this piping crossing their arch. and finally you accepted it, and I think it was very cool, because at that point, like, the two installations meet each other.
Mm-hmm. That's really a great story. Alina, you have been on the spot every day. Like to add something? How did you see that? What was your experience there?
Yeah, I was on site when basically we connected the outdoor units of the AC units with the indoor units. So this basically means all the piping was done on this, was supposed to be done on this day, and I arrived and I knew I need to be very careful with exactly this boundary between the first room and the second room, and exactly where the mirror wall would be. So I had basically I brought my paperwork, and I had my measurement tools, and told all the construction workers we have to keep exactly 1 meter here. And so all the most important details I mentioned, I think 10 times. And in the end, it was also interesting for me, because of course there were so many technicalities that were mentioned by the site workers on site on this day, that we had to decide at the spot how we're going to do this, because the piping had to run in a specific way, had to be holded up somewhere. So it was all coming together, and then including all those technicalities that we might not have thought of completely or thought through. So I think it was even more complicated, but in the end it worked out perfectly, I would say.
You know, there is something that we never mention. Well, in our informal discussions, yes, the role of the workers on the site was incredibly helpful. Yeah. You can't imagine how much expertise they have.
100% agree, Michele. I think the workers there, they were like super spontaneous, super motivated. Like I was basically still repositioning panels there with workers 1 hour before the opening. It was incredible. I mean, I don't know what to do if they would have just said, no, we're done.
So I think we heard a lot of points or aspects of coming to a good work together. And just to, at the end, to add a bit of irony, what are the typical and sometimes funny prejudices against, let's say, artists or architects? Michele, you like to start? You're an artist and architect yourself.
Well, usually, the prejudice is like that. Okay, the artists just want to make it beautiful. No, so this is an issue, because if you think that artists only work on beauty, then you miss a point. Huh? At the same time, well, this is also pretty similar to architects, no? So especially between engineers and architects, okay, they just want to decorate, they just want to work on proportions and so on, no? But how they will make it standing, no? So at the end of the day, I mean, one of the issues is always about the capability of constructing. That is instead like the very base for both arts and architecture, of course. While at the same time, the engineers are, come on, those people, they only work on numbers. They don't understand. They don't understand. They cannot draw. They only, have Excel files. No, so that's a nice thing.
Jochen, you like to join? Come on. What are the prejudices?
Well, I mean, the problem is like you have two architects sitting in the studio. You have another architect on the phone. I'm here, the engineer. I'm feeling it's like a bit of thin ice where I move on. No, I think Michele is it's not that wrong. I think we believe in numbers. We believe in like analysis, and of course things have to be proven before we go for it. And I think what I learned is that I think we always need to start with the vision and the bigger, I would say, picture, and then we need to get deeper into, let's say, how we're going to execute it, and I think this is where I would say some artists and some architects miss the point, because somewhere you need to get pragmatic, somewhere you need to switch from thinking to basically doing. But honestly, let's say from my experience so far, it usually works fine. It just takes some time.
Melis, what do you think? You're working on both sides. You belong
Yeah.
to both spheres.
Yeah.
So what is it?
Yeah, both Alina and I, actually, we were discussing about this even before this installation, I believe, that having architectural training and working in an engineering office, you realize also what it means to be on both sides of the table. And the more you realize, it should actually be one side of the table, because you have these situations where the prejudice is driving from the will to convince the other. But this is not often the solution, because you don't necessarily have to convince the other person to give up their vision so that project or installation or work could be successful.
You know, Martin, the worst are the lawyers. This is what I want to say.
Yeah.
Like, the security manager arrived and said, on the regulation is written that you have to respect 100 centimeters or whatever. You have to do this. And this was not related to experience, no?
Another example is maybe that there was a regulation of the lowest point of the thing that could hang from the ceiling, because, not only because there's water underneath, but also because, in general, they had a limitation for this. So whatever we are hanging has to be out of human reach. But that also affects your perception of density, because, that means that we have to design in a way that the AC units are hanging lower towards the end of the rooms, but you don't want to make the audience observe that there's a pattern to it, because you want to make that, sort of, so to speak, chaos somehow, an organized chaos. So that was another point where we struggled, but the lows of the installation was quite funny.
By the way, I think this is also was a good example for basically the way how we worked in the end together, because of that, they asked us to reposition the AC units. And if I wouldn't have the help of Michele and 𝗙𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗁𝗍, I don't know how we would have done that.
Yeah.
So we were standing in the pool to reposition it by ourselves. There was also like a very good picture of the cooperation at the end.
Yeah. And also the fact that we didn't give up. Okay, we have 2 weeks to do our, in quotation marks, installation, and then hand it over to the Pistoletto team. But the communication went onward. So it wasn't in the end, okay, this is yours, this is ours. And that we tried to keep that communication alive also when we finished our installation, but still, they have to work around our installation. So that communication was also crucial for application on site.
Definitely. But I think the point is very often in business meetings, the people come in and they start with some kind of agenda, and we are talking about the business, but this has to be done and so on. But that what we discussed right now in the last 20 minutes is something different. It's from humans, roles and respect. And I think all these points are really crucial to realize that, to put this to practice, what 𝗙𝗿𝗏𝗍 and all of us, of course, also think, that we have to put these intelligences together to come along with climate change, to come along with these challenges. So at this point, I would really like to thank you very much for your inspiring discussions and for this openness in the discussion. So thanks again for being here and for discussing.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Martin.
You've been listening to Terms and Conditions, the Transsolar podcast, brought to you by Transsolar Energietechnik and TUM, Chair of Building Technology and Climate Responsive Design. Production by 𝗙𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗁𝗏 Studio.